The economy in the last 5 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is laced with some gains and some drags. The gains can be described as the fulfillment of some of his promises, some of which are the notable growth in external reserves, improvements in the ease of doing business, the social investment programs, and the aggressive investments in infrastructure as evident in the standard gauge rail projects.
And at the same time, we have received 44 coaches for the passengers, and we have set up the logistics of moving them to their various locations. We are moving 10 of the coaches to Itakpe-Warri. Nobody talk about that.
The downside of the Buhari administration may not be deliberate, but a victim of circumstance. This is due to the country's economic fundamentals, which is largely commodity dependent and import reliant, a structure that the administration has struggled to change.
The benchmark price for crude oil in the budget was $57 per barrel. Now we're talking $20 per barrel. So it means the various expenditure lines included in the budget, whether we're talking personnel costs, salaries, like you said, capital, would have to come from that lower revenue figure and then the incremental borrowing that we have had to do.
The downers of the administration have also been worsened by the outbreak of COVID-19, and in spite of projections of a second economic recession, the economic actors appear to be more at work.
Although Q1 2020 gross domestic product turned out pleasantly at 1.87% and rates of inflation somewhat moderated, Nigeria may escape a recession if concerted efforts are sustained to stimulate output.
You had the Minister of State talking about the extinguishing of the subsidies, and there are other changes that are taking place, most of them involuntary, but some of them voluntary. So we think that there's a little bit of hope at the end of this tunnel, some light at the end of the tunnel.
The Buhari administration has a sunset of 2023. This means the president has just a little over 1,000 days of timeline to effect more, the change mantra he rode on in 2015 to power. Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
For more on the president's 5 years in office, we're now being joined at the news at 10 by Professor Olawale Ajayi from the Lagos Business School. He's a professor of legal, politics and economy business, right? Not the full designation, though, but close enough. So let's begin with your thoughts on how the administration has performed in the last 5 years.
I think it's fair to say that the administration has been very long on intention, very long in terms of enthusiasm and passion. However, the results appear to be mixed, particularly when you look at the living standards, because that's the whole essence of economic activity. And with unemployment rate at about 23%, underemployment rate at about 20%, poverty rate at about 40%, HDI at about 0.532%, and with the borrowing level, external borrowing level, about $36 billion, meaning that by some accounts we're spending about 96% of revenue in terms of debt repayment. One would say that it's not yet uhuru, to use that phrase.
Indeed, and capital expenditure under this administration was hiked to about 30% until lately when it had to be reviewed. To what extent then would you say this aspect of the budget has impacted the economy?
I think that was a plus for the administration. And we've seen a completion of some of the projects that were started by previous administrations in infrastructure, particularly on the rail and some of the road projects. Unfortunately, these are projects that whose benefits will kick in over time. But in terms of that shift to capital expenditure, that was certainly something that I think has been commendable.
And we did experience an economic recession under this administration, and we're likely approaching another recession. We heard the CBN governor there in the report saying there are some factors that need to be put in place in order for us to avoid that. What would you suggest at this point?
I very much doubt that we can avoid a recession because these are COVID-19 impacts and the oil price squeeze from the big elephants fighting. It will be a miracle if we can avoid a recession. But what is to be done, which I think the central bank largely and the fiscal authorities largely are doing, is stimulus. This is, in fact, the recommendation of economists, particularly those who very much worked on the downturn in the United States, unorthodox measures to ensure that you keep, stimulating the economy. Even the borrowing, the foreign borrowing of $3.4 billion, I think, to me, is in the right order. The important thing, though, is that it is spent judiciously in raising productive activity. And it looks like perhaps oil will moderate over time. I think the other point is that the current situation gives us opportunities to take bold steps to restructure the economy, to invest, particularly in our people, in terms of improving living standards. So I think those are the upsides that we can look at.
Thank you so much, Professor Olawale Ajayi. We'd have loved to talk some more about this, but I appreciate your being here on the News at 10.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.